Thanks for tuning in to the Prime Bookseller Podcast, the bi-weekly podcast discussing all things Amazon bookselling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Prime Bookselling Podcast. I'm Eric, and we're back again. We're talking today about something pretty simple, but it's actually surprising to me that I get a lot of questions about this topic, and that's the topic of what are bookselling seasons. And what I mean by that is that the obvious season that everybody thinks of is like Christmas, where sales just go crazy. So does books have any season similar to that? And this question can be kind of confusing, but to me, there are two definitive seasons that books do have beyond, obviously, certain seasons, like the example of Christmas. Christmas is out of control for everything, so you should see some sort of sale spike due to the Christmas holidays. I have heard from other people that no, they don't really see a spike in their book sales during Christmas, but I think they're not looking at their numbers correctly, because I can't imagine how they don't have it, just due to the fact that there are so many people online buying at that point in time that it only makes logic sense that more stuff is going to sell. But beyond Christmas, what are good seasons for books? And typically the seasons that I find are the most successful with books are completely tied to school. So, and I don't know if this is an official term, but I always call them textbook seasons. So, and the main textbook seasons that I see are, the big one is, and again, I'm not really sure why this is, but the July to August, and even sometimes into September a little bit, season is by far the biggest textbook season. And obviously the reason for that is just because everybody's going back to school and they're online buying their college books and things like that. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't foresee myself selling a lot of textbooks, so this season really doesn't have an effect on me, you would be very wrong. There are countless books that we kind of coin as being invisible textbooks, which means that they are not textbooks. They look like a normal book that anybody would go to a bookstore and buy, but they're heavily used by colleges for something. Believe it or not, if you think back to when you were in school, or maybe you're in school right now, think about it. Is every book that is referenced in class a textbook? Yeah, granted, majority of them probably are, but there are other books that schools use that are not specifically coined as textbooks. So that would be the major one, and that's the biggest one. The other textbook season comes in the frame of generally in January, February, because that's when people are getting off of semester 1 and going back to school for semester 2. There is definitely a spike in sales in that area. It is not as significant as the August one. Can't really give you a good explanation for why that is. Maybe it's that in August you have a bunch of people going to school for the first time, and then by August half of them fall off and drop out of school and they're not buying books anymore or something. I don't really know. I can't explain why one is bigger than the other. I have seen in times where the January one has been bigger, but I equate that to the fact that you're also coming, because you do get kind of a bump up. This is just a theory of mine, but I think there's still a bump up in January, even beyond textbooks. But there's also, you have to think that Christmas just happened and a lot of people got Amazon gift cards and stuff like that for Christmas. So there's just a higher influx of people out there buying. So you may see like a bump in sales in that time frame, just because people have disposable money that they need to get rid of, so they might be out there buying books and things like that. Those are the good seasons for books. Now, what in my experience are the bad months? And I'll preface the bad months with the forewarning that some of the reason why some of these months might be, in my mind, the bad months is because you're coming off of a good month and then you follow into a less than good month. So you see this huge drop in sales, and it's very frustrating every year, but it's just because the market is normalizing. So maybe that month isn't even that bad, but it just always seems bad because you're coming off of this huge month of sales, and then you're going in and seeing it all drop off and return back to normal. But those months in my head are typically October is awful. It seems to me like come October time, people just put their wallets away and say, we're not spending any money until Christmas, until November, and the deals start for Christmas. So October has historically been very bad for me. And then like the March, April timeframe, like I would say the beginning of March until tax season is another time in that people seem to like put their money away until they get their taxes done and get their tax return, and then they start spending money again. So you will see drop-offs. But again, if you look at those months, they're kind of almost following both of the textbook season months. So it might not be that they're any worse than any other month. It just feels like they are because you're coming off of a strong month and then seeing everything drop off. So that kind of gives you an outlook on what the different textbook seasons are. I just wanted to put that out there because this is a question that I never really thought of, but I find that there's a lot of people that I talk to and they're like, well, what are the good months for selling books? And it's like, I guess I never thought of why somebody would want to know that, but now there's a podcast for you, so you know at least my opinion on what the solid months and what the weak months of selling books are. The other thing I can talk about with trends of that is that once you come off of Christmas, I typically have the feeling that pretty much from Christmas all the way until like May, it's pretty flat. I don't typically see really strong months of sales in there, but then like once June comes around, you start seeing it swing back up, and it starts. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that while I equate textbook season to being mostly August, I really do think that like a lot of institutional buyers and stuff like that are jumping on and starting as early as June. So you see that kind of that sales start fluctuating upwards because of that, and then it goes into the textbook season. You have this really strong textbook season, and then it kind of drops off until you see Christmas again. So that kind of gives you a timeline trajectory, I guess, of what the book selling environment looks like, so you have a good idea of what to expect from your sales. So, I mean, what you can take away from this episode is that I wouldn't tell you that you should start in a strong month, but you can start book selling every month, but just kind of take these dates into mind so you realize that if you start in April and it just doesn't seem like it's going very well, you're kind of in a bad time of the year. So you might want to just hang with it until you get, I should clarify this because I always say to everybody, if you're going to get into this book selling business, you have to give it a year. If you don't give it a year, then don't even if you're not willing to commit to it for a year, don't bother doing it because getting something started like this, it's an uphill battle. And if you aren't even willing, if you expect something to happen within under a year, I mean, there's a high probability that it's not going to happen and you're going to fail and you're going to give up. So if you're in the mindset of I need to see results after 3 months, I would probably tell you to just, don't even waste your time with this. Go find something else to do and you can just fail at that instead. Because you really do need to commit yourself to giving this time because it takes time to build it. And with that, if you're one of those people out there that says, oh man, I've been doing this for 3 months and killing it, then I'd be like, hey man, you got my email address. Send me an email and come on the podcast and tell everybody how you're doing it. Because in my experience, that's just not how it really works. But I wanted to outline these seasons so you can get an idea of, hey, when I'm starting, if I'm feeling real bad about how I'm doing, just kind of give you an idea of where you are in the calendar. And maybe, so you have something to look for, like, okay, well, I'm in April right now. Hopefully we'll start seeing things pick up in June and stuff like that. So I know this is a quick and short one, but I just wanted to get this out here because I have had that question asked on multiple occasions, so I just wanted to get a answer out there for you. So with that, we'll wrap this episode up. As always, if you are interested in learning how you can source additional books for your store through one of our many of our couple sourcing programs, please do check out the show notes for the links to the automated process as well as just the regular wholesale process. Or you can also find those out over at kingsridgemedia.com. And as always, if you do have questions, feel free to drop me an email. My email address is sales, S-A-L-E-S, at kingsridgemedia.com. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. And I want to thank everybody for their continued support of this podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Prime Bookseller Podcast. Join us for the next episode as we discuss all things Amazon bookselling.